Hello, hello. This is Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes. Welcome to the Word from SDB. So I'm not having our lighting issues tonight. I got my stuff together. It is so good to be with you. I am so excited to be back. I have been on a statewide tour, not really. I had a speaking engagement. Actually, I did some leadership training in Kansas City this past weekend. This past weekend. So I have been in, let's see, I think I counted, it's like 6 states in the past, or over a 3-day period. So I was tired, y'all. I was tired. I was so tired, y'all. I forgot I didn't call my dad to let him know I had made it home. So he called me tonight and he was like, I was just calling to make sure you got home. And I was like, but I texted you last night, Dad. And he was like, no, you didn't. And then I realized that it was 2 nights ago. So anyway, I've been trying to catch up, and but I did not want the night to get away without bringing you the word from SDB. Of course, I got my wine tonight. I need some wine. It's been that kind of weekend. And after this, hey, I am going to relax and call it a night. Maybe do a little reading. But before I did, I want to talk about another popular topic at nighttime, but we ain't going to go that way. And that is SEX and the CEO. Of course, some of you, I'm sure, have been seeing the headlines about Harvey Weinstein and kind of all the problems and things that he's had because he can't control himself in the workplace. And of course, there have been a lot of high-profile cases around the pervasiveness of sexual harassment in the workplace and in the marketplace. I mean, it has touched the White House, it has touched Silicon Valley, it has touched Hollywood. But, you know, it's not something that just happens in these high-profile areas. The benefit or the good thing about it being in the spotlight is now it is bringing home an issue that many women and men, although it's predominantly something that women face, there are men who face sexual harassment in the workplace and the marketplace as well. But this is something that everybody talks about or everybody knows about, but nobody discusses. It's like the white elephant or the pink elephant in the room. So I'm going to be doing a 5-part series on SEX and the CEO because there's some very important things that we need to talk about. Because one of the things about, you know, talking about things, it brings issues to the surface, and it also lets us know that we're not alone in some of the things that we're facing. And also, you know, this is something that's good for both men and women to take part in because although I will be talking about it from the woman's perspective, I am a woman CEO, so that's the perspective. I know that's the perspective I'm going to bring. It is something, a very important dialogue that we need, both men and women need to have. Women need to discuss it among themselves so that they know they're not alone when they face certain issues. Men need to listen to these issues to see, to be able to be aware of what's going on in the workplace and some of the things that their female colleagues are facing, and also to know some things that perhaps they're doing and don't realize that it could be thought of as sexual harassment. So invite some of your fellow CEOs to join, whether you are joining in the live session tonight or you're going to join watching the replay later on. This is a conversation that we need to have. We need to talk about sex. Okay, and not in an explicit way, but we need to talk about the fact that, you know, when you have men and women in the workplace, in the marketplace, there are sexual undertones, overtones, undertones to everything that we do, and we need to be honest. We need to have open and honest conversation and dialogue around this issue. So one of the things that I wanted to start the discussion, as I mentioned, this is a 5-part series. So tonight we're going to talk about what do you do if you are sexually harassed? What does this even look like? What does it mean from a legal perspective? And then what does it just mean from the way you feel when you're in the workplace? Now, of course, there is a legal definition, and I'm going to use the definition that the EEOC uses, which is the Employment Equal Opportunity Office. I forgot what it stands for. But anyway, I should know that. I should look it up before I got on here, but y'all work with me. So, now the one thing I want to note is that, of course, the EEOC is looking at it in the employment context. But I want to also address it from the perspective of the entrepreneur who's in the marketplace. Because the way I experience sexual harassment in the workplace is a lot different than how I experience it as a woman entrepreneur in some instances still a male-dominated environment, or just when I interact with male clients or prospective male clients. But of course, the way that you handle it will be different depending on whether you're in the actual workplace or not. And y'all hear my dog in the background. Now this heifer been in here chilling the whole time. As soon as I get on the live, now she wants to go outside. But guess what? She's going to have to wait. So anyway, Zara, leave that. Anyway, sorry about that. She's my trusty assistant who sometimes is a very good assistant, and sometimes, like tonight, she just want to cut all up when I get on the live video. But anyway, let us focus. So, that's what you do when you are a CEO. Dogs are like kids, when you're a woman CEO, or, you just got to keep it moving. So, Zara is in the video. She's down here, and she's going to bug me the whole time. But you know what? I've got focus. See, there she is. So, anyway, this is Zara all up in the video. Anyway, so we're going to talk about what does sexual harassment mean. And, of course, I want this to be interactive. So, if I say something that resonates with you, please let me know. Please share your experiences to the extent that you would like to, or just share some of the things, share your comments on this very important topic with the dog all up in the video. But anyway, so what is sexual harassment? So there are kind of three ways that you can look at it. First of all, it is unwelcome sexual advances, okay? Requests for sexual favors or other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. So this can be, it can be innuendos, it can be unwanted touching, it can be anything that is of a sexual nature, all right? So when does it become harassment, all right? The EEOC defines it in three ways. First of all, it's when these unwanted sexual advances are made when submission to such conduct is either explicitly or implicitly a term or condition of employment. And we're going to adapt it somewhat for women or entrepreneurs when the unwanted advances are an implicit or explicit condition for business. Oh, no, she didn't. Did she just bark at me in my house? But anyway, we're going to keep it moving, or we're going to have some dog harassment going on here. The second part of it is submission, where the rejection of the conduct, the unwanted sexual advances or touching, is used as a basis for employment or business decisions affecting the person that the unwanted advances were made towards. And the third one is probably what most people face. And it is conduct that has the purpose or effect of unreasonably interfering with the individual's work performance or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive working or business environment. So those are the three types. That's technically what sexual harassment is. But at the end of the day, it's anything that's unwanted, that's of a sexual nature, that is either physical, somebody touching you, or saying things that make you feel uncomfortable. That's why I said the third scenario is typically what most people face, is that it's something that is in the work environment, it's in the business environment, and it just makes you feel uncomfortable. So like I said, there are gray areas for entrepreneurs, because, in the workplace, it's pretty clear in that you typically are going to have an HR department. Typically, there's going to be an HR policy, human resources policy, that says what happens if you face sexual harassment in the workplace. So you've got a chain of command. You've got an external place to go. Now, of course, those systems are not perfect, okay? But at least you have a place where you can go. When you are an entrepreneur in the marketplace, there's no HR to go to. So what do? So, I'm going to talk through some of the different scenarios for things that you can do to protect yourself. Because at the end of the day, it's all about being able to handle your business in a business environment. Sex has its place, all right, but it does not have its place when you're trying to take care of business. And, there's a time for that, and there's a time to take care of your business. So I'm going to talk through some of those things. So, as I like to describe it, now that I'm an entrepreneur, I, unfortunately, fortunately, whatever, often face situations where a male client or a prospective male client wants to expand the scope of my services. That's how I describe it, okay? I'm there to do business. I'm trying to do leadership training or business training, and they want to expand the scope of my services. That's how I describe it. So, as I've mentioned, I face this issue differently now that I'm not in a company, that I'm in the marketplace than when I was in the workplace. But regardless of whether you're in the workplace, whether you are in an academic setting, in a institutional setting, the guidance that I share is the same. So, when this happens, there are three things you need to do. You need to say something, you need to do something, and you need to tell someone. Say something, do something, tell someone. I'm going to go through what I mean by that. The first thing is, it should not be counterintuitive for some people to recognize that telling sexual jokes or talking about, because some folks like to tell all their business and they want to share what they did sexually or whatever. It should go without saying that, that people, not everybody has the same level of sensitivity as it relates. So sometimes, while you may feel that everybody should know that this is inappropriate, some folks just don't, okay? So you do need to say something. What does saying something do? Number one, it puts them on notice. Your sexual advances, what you're talking about is unwanted. It is inappropriate. I do not like it. Now they are on notice. So they can't credibly come back and say, oh, I didn't know. I thought she was okay with it. And I'll share, as I go through this, I'll share some of the examples of some of the issues that I've gone through. And I will tell you, the first blatant sexual harassment incident I had difficulty saying something. It shocked me so. So at this time in my career, I was actually an executive in a company. So I was up in the organizational chart. And I had a male employee. Actually, he reported to me, okay? But he was, of the generation that did not have an appreciation for boundaries, just how I'll say it. So he said something that was incredibly offensive to me. Basically, he said to me that he and a board member had been discussing the size of my ass. And I'm going to use my ass because that's what he said, okay? And he just casually, like we talking about baseball, says to me, yeah, me and such, I ran into such and such in town the other day, and he asked me, is your ass still big, or something like that. And y'all, I was so shocked. I couldn't say anything because, one, I was incredibly offended. Number two, I just could not believe that this was happening. I could not believe the audacity. So I couldn't even say anything. I couldn't even follow my own advice. So I share that scenario to recognize that sometimes the shock of it is such that in the moment, it may actually be difficult to say something, but you need to get your composure and at some point come back and do it. Now, I was able to later, it shocked me, so I don't even remember what I said after that. But at a later time, I brought him into my office. That picture was crooked and that bothers me. I brought him into my office, and we had a very vivid discussion about the propriety and impropriety of his remarks. And I also had a nice little conversation around his performance evaluation that helped him to understand that he needed to be more discerning in his remarks regarding my physical appearance. Now, so eventually I was able to say something. But you do need to say something. Speak up for yourself. And it may be frightening, it may be shocking, and it may be uncomfortable, but if you won't advocate for yourself, then it is difficult for others to do so as well. So that's the first thing, is you need to say something. Your voice matters. Because the unfortunate thing that happens is sometimes your silence is interpreted as it's okay. It's not offensive. Because, that's the first thing that they say is, well, she didn't say anything. She laughed. Because, as a matter of fact, I think when that guy made that comment about my behind, it shocked me. So I think I may have, I don't know what I did. I think I may have actually laughed because in my mind I was saying, this foolishness is not really happening to me in 2000, whatever year that was. And this man works for me, So sometimes our initial impression may be such that, we're just in the shock of the moment. But when you get yourself together, you do need to say something. The second thing you need to do is do something. It particularly if it involves unwanted touching, because most of the instances that I encountered as an employee, interestingly, and it always was with older gentlemen that, like I said, came from a generation that did not appreciate boundaries, and it would always be the touching me in my back. You walk up to somebody and you rub them in the back. I'm like, get your nasty hands off my back. So, those things, if they make you uncomfortable, because some people do that. They walk up to you and rub you in your back, and that's inappropriate. That's a personal area, And so if someone does something and you need to move, or because you don't have to be blatant about it. There are some instances where you might need to smack them upside the head, smack their hand away from you or whatever. You do what's appropriate, but you may need to move their hands, or you may need to move away. But the point here is to do something that gets you in a safe and a position for your safety. So particularly if it is unwanted physical touching, then you do need to do something and get yourself out of that situation, or get somebody else's help. If there's, if you need, if it's a situation where you feel physically threatened, do what you can to get yourself in a safe situation. So remove yourself, don't be beyond, if you need to protect yourself, you need to protect yourself. And because, and I'm going to get to this, because there's a difference in, sometimes it is a civil matter, sometimes it's a criminal matter. When they cross the line and it becomes battery and even assault, then, you do need to protect yourself. And so that's the second thing. So say something, do something. And the third thing is tell someone. This is not something that you should feel like you need to handle on your own. Now, the routes are going to be different. If you're an entrepreneur, you're not going to have that HR department that you can go to, or if it's, you're a contractor, or, you're not an employee, and the person that is harassing you is either a employee, a fellow employee, a colleague, coworker, or someone to whom you report, or a leader in the organization. So, but if you're in the workplace, go to HR, your Human Resources Department. Now, it's very important to do that because you need to put the organization on notice. Because if they're put on notice that they've got some lewd joker going around saying nasty stuff, putting his hands on people, then they have a responsibility. They have a liability for that person's actions. So you need to make sure that you report it. Now, I always put everything in writing. So even though you may go and have a verbal conversation, follow up, send an email. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about this experience I've been having, the behavior I've been subjected to. I'm grateful that you are going to handle it in accordance with the company's policies. Thank you so much. So that way they can't say that the conversation, well, they can say that the conversation never happened, but you have some documentation that you did put the company on notice. But make sure that you go to HR. Now, if you are not in an employee situation, then you can go to the leadership. So let's just say I am working with a company and I'm trying to get their business, and I am, and I'm a contractor trying to secure a contract or to do some type of service for them, and I encounter a situation with somebody in their leadership. Now, I don't work for the organization, but I can go to their leadership because even though I'm not an employee, there still may be company policies that govern this type of behavior, and the company needs to be aware that they got a lewd, nasty joker going around, making sexual advances at contractors or vendors, because the likelihood that the person is doing it towards a contractor is high that they're also doing that to their employees. So that's one route that you can take. So if it crosses the line and it's more than just verbal sexual advances or lewd comments or inappropriate remarks about your physical appearance, and it's actual touching, it's battery, it's assault. They really go to the point of forcing some type of interaction. Then it becomes a criminal matter, and you should report it to the police. And then make sure that you are protecting yourself that way, because it is a very difficult thing to do, because like I say, the instance where my employee, the man who worked for me, said those things to me. Now again, he didn't touch me. It never arose to battery or assault. It was embarrassing to think that someone would disregard me in this way. But the thing is, we've got to get over the embarrassment, and we've got to not allow other people's decisions, choices, actions to make us feel shameful about who we are. Because there's never an instance where you are responsible for somebody else's actions. You are responsible for your actions and your behaviors. You're not responsible for what someone else chooses to say and how they may choose to disrespect you or choose to commit a crime by laying their hands on you. So make sure that you are an advocate for yourself. And I don't say these things lightly and suggest that, oh, it's just so easy, you just go down there and you do it. That's why, if you need to tell a trusted friend, if you're married, you need to tell your spouse. If you are not married, you've got a family member or someone that you can trust and can help you and go with you, or if you need to seek counseling. Because a lot of times these issues don't get reported because women are shamed and don't tell anybody, and they keep it to themselves, and they feel all embarrassed about it, and they're suffering in silence, which is why it's so important to tell someone. So, you may not be in the right frame of mind to act on it initially because you're in shock, because you may even be physically hurt. But telling someone that you trust who can help you and can help you to advocate for yourself is so incredibly important. So, if you need to go to the police, then do that. Protect yourself. And the thing is, not only are you protecting yourself, but you're protecting others. Because, as you've seen, if you've been following the Hollywood scandal, when the original actress came out, and I apologize at this point her name has slipped my mind, but when she came forward, others came forward. And so sometimes by advocating for yourself, you empower others to advocate for themselves, and in doing so, they are able to help you in protecting yourself. So, and then there's some instances where civil action may be taken, because even if it is not something that you're going to bring a criminal action against them, you can bring a civil action against them. And the whole thing is, or the important thing to remember is to document things, which is why it's important to tell someone, because you may be in a state of shock and can't really appreciate what's happening to you. But if you can tell someone, they can help you to recount it cogently. They can help you to take notes. They can help you to be sure that you are able to accurately account for what's happening. So that's why it's important that if you face sexual harassment, that you don't feel like you have to be alone. This is not something that women or men, and like I said, this happens to men too. It happens more frequently with a male against a woman, but it does happen where women inappropriately make sexual advances towards men as well. So again, I'm speaking to it from my perspective as a woman CEO. I've never been a male CEO, so I can't speak to it from that perspective, but I do acknowledge that this is an issue that happens on both sides. However, it is more prevalent against women by men. So it's not something that you should suffer in silence. So, sometimes you may be questioning, is this something that, is it a big deal? And you may discount it because you may think, oh, I'm being sensitive, or, oh, I don't want to get such and such in trouble, or I don't want to cause trouble. Or you may genuinely be afraid of the financial implications. And that's the thing that people who are sexual predators and people who harass others on the job and in the business place are predators just the same, okay? Because they are preying on that person's fear. They're preying on that person's need for the financial benefit, the need for their job, and they're leveraging their power inappropriately because they know that in that instance they have a higher power exchange than the person that they're perpetrating this behavior against. And so they're preying on that. But as you can see, let's just use the Harvey Weinstein situation. He's a powerful Hollywood executive. And he basically relied upon being this powerful Hollywood executive that no one would ever come forward, or if they did, that no one would believe them, or that no one would take him seriously. And because enough women did come forward and did come out, now his peers are, the Academy has voted, I believe, if I remember correctly from the article, the Academy has voted to remove revoke his membership because he violates their ethical principles. And there are sometimes, I'm still extremely disappointed that the President of the United States has openly admitted, has been videoed being, conducting sexual harassment and, is not held accountable for his actions. Eventually that will happen in whatever way that's supposed to play out. However, but, we do live in a society where peer pressure can be powerful. And typically people don't want to be associated with predators, especially sexual predators. So peer pressure and relying on other people to have the ethics to not support that type of behavior is something that you can often rely upon. So, as you can see in the Harvey Weinstein situation, his peers basically said, you know what, we're not going to condone this. We don't want to be associated with it. And so that you have the traction that has garnered around the women who have brought these allegations forward. And so, it is, I'm sure for the first woman, it was extremely frightening. And for each woman who came forward subsequently, it was frightening. However, there's power in a collective. And so sometimes you've got to be the one to step forward, but it's not about who else is going to stand up. It's, are you going to stand up for yourself? And again, I don't say these things lightly. I've had some situations and still face some situations, so I know how it feels personally, and I know that I may process it differently than another woman. My level of sensitivity may be higher than another woman. And as an attorney, I may process it a whole lot differently than a woman who is not aware of her rights. Which is why I wanted to do this video, because I wanted to be sure that we understand that we have rights. You have a right to protect yourself on your job. You have a right to be able to work in an environment where you don't have to be subjected to anyone's sexual advances. You have a right to work in an environment where you don't have to be subjected to physical, sexual advances. Where you don't have to work where you are subjected to battery and assault, whether you are an employee or a contractor. Because if you are an employee, was it Title IX? And I might have the titles wrong. let's see, is it Title 8, sorry. Title 9 something else. Title 8 is going to apply, and there's a whole set of rights and procedures that address that. But even if you're not an employee, as a human being, you have the right to be in an environment and not be harassed, and to not be touched inappropriately, and not to be subjected to any unwanted behavior or action. So the more that we are aware of the rights that we have, the more that we're able to advocate for our rights, and to know that we have them, and know that we don't have to accept, inappropriate behavior, inappropriate actions, inappropriate touching. Because at the end of the day, it boils down to, how does it make you feel, and what do you want? If you do not want someone to tell, because some women, some people, some men, are not offended by sexual jokes. And that's cool. Don't be offended. But if you are offended, say something. And if something does make you comfortable, don't feel bad that it doesn't make someone else uncomfortable. People have different tolerances, If somebody else doesn't mind being groped, that's their business. They got some issues that you don't have to deal with it. But if you don't want anybody touching on your private parts or touching on you anywhere, you have a right to say, I do not want you to touch me in that way, and I'm not going to accept it. You have that right. Your rights are not relative to other people's comfort levels. And that's something that often, where peer pressure works to our disadvantage, in that because someone else doesn't feel uncomfortable, we somehow feel bad because we do feel uncomfortable. And the thing is, if it makes you feel uncomfortable, it makes you feel uncomfortable. And you don't have to apologize for that. You don't have to explain it. All you have to do is to say, I don't like it, I don't want it, I don't want to be a part of it. So your rights are relative to you, and not to anyone else's beliefs, tolerances, comfort levels. It's very independent, or very individualized to how it makes you feel. So that's what I wanted to talk about tonight, is, to open the dialogue around what is sexual harassment, and what do you do if it happens, and how do you know if you should do anything. And the thing is, at the heart of it, sexual harassment is any type of unwanted sexual behavior, sexual conversation, inappropriate touching, anything that is unwanted of a sexual nature. That's going to be the basic definition. What should you do if it happens to you? You should say something. Voice that it makes you uncomfortable. Voice that you do not want it. Voice that you want it to stop. Then the second thing is to do something. Remove yourself from the situation where you are in danger. Move away from the person. Get someone else's help if you need, if you're physically threatened and you need to protect yourself. Do something to protect yourself. And then the third thing is to tell someone. If you're in an employment situation, follow your HR policy. Go to HR, the Human Resources Department, and get their help. If you are in an entrepreneurial setting and you are not an employee and you don't have that hierarchy, go to leadership. And you may have to go to external sources to protect yourself individually. Because just because you're not an employee does not mean you are unprotected. As an individual, you have the right to work and to be in an environment without being subjected to unwanted sexual behavior or unwanted sexual advances. So you can protect yourself. And sometimes it may rise to, okay. Oh, that's actually, Lorenzo, you got a great question. And that is a great segue about tomorrow night. Because as I mentioned, this is a 5-part series. And tomorrow I'm going to talk about dress and appearance. And how all of that plays into this, should or should not. So great question, Lorenzo. So come back tomorrow night. And I'm going to talk about that specifically. Because that is a factor. Never is an excuse. And never is an invitation. But it is a factor. And we do need to be open and honest about how dress and appearance, what role that plays, and how people perceive it, how they should or shouldn't but the very realities around dress and appearance in this whole conversation about sex in the workplace and in the marketplace. So join me tomorrow for part 2. So as I mentioned, this is part 1 of part 5, SEX and the CEO, a candid discussion around sex in the marketplace and the workplace. It's a very needed dialogue, something that we all have encountered or observed or are wondering about, but we may be unwilling to actually talk about it. But we do need to talk about it. We need to have dialogue because we need to educate ourselves. And this is a great dialogue for both men and women to have, because let's face it, it is 2017 and the men and women are going to be working together in work environments and business environments. And so sex is going to come up at some point, and so you need to be realistic about it, and you need to be informed and educated so that you can make good decisions that make the workplace and the marketplace a positive environment where you can take care of business. Because, as I say, sex is a good thing, but it has no place where it is interfering with your ability to take care of your business, whether that is to work your job without being harassed or to conduct business without having to be subjected to unwanted sexual advances. You know, sex has its place, but not when you're trying to take care of business. So anyway, thank y'all so much for joining me. I'm going to go and finish my wine and go take this dog out since she interrupted the first part of my video. So maybe she'll be quiet tomorrow night. But anyway, thank y'all so much for joining me. This has been the Word from SDB, SEX, and the CEO, a candid discussion on sex in the marketplace and the workplace. So join me tomorrow for part 2, where I am going to be addressing dress and appearance and kind of the whole conversation around that and how it influences, impacts, and instigates some of the issues we have surrounding sex in the workplace and the marketplace. So thank y'all so much. I will see you on tomorrow with part 2 of the 5-part series, SEX and the CEO. And in the meantime, y'all make sure you go over to drstephaniedbarnes.com, see what's going on with me. And if you have any questions, first of all, put them in the feed. I will answer your questions. Or if you have a specific question that you don't feel comfortable asking me about in the feed, why don't you text me at 228-238-7997, and either I will answer the question directly or make sure that I address it in the upcoming videos. So again, that's 228-238-7997. Text me your question and I will be certain to answer it. Like I said, I'll either answer it in the feed or because I will share the answer so that others can have the benefit of the answer as well. But it may be something like what Lorenzo did, ask me a question that I'm actually going to address in part 2 of the series, because I've got 4 more parts, and so I will be certain to address your questions because, like I say, this is a very important topic, something that we really need to be talking about so that we can improve our working dynamics and not kind of be under this cloud of sex, right? Okay, then, well, this is Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, and it has been my pleasure to talk about SEX and the CEO. So join me tomorrow for part 2, where I will be addressing dress and appearance, how it influences, instigates, and impacts sex in the marketplace and the workplace. So I will see you next time. And again, give me your questions in the feed. If anything has resonated, I want to hear from you. And the hashtag, that's important. It's always good to have a hashtag, and that is Your Voice Matters. Your voice matters. So if you are willing to be an advocate for yourself, and this is men and women, an advocate for yourself and an advocate for others, then I want you to put in the feed, My Voice Matters. My Voice Matters. So thank y'all so much. I'll see you next time on the Word from SDB. Cheers. Good night.